Hello, everyone. Thank you so much again for joining us and for being here. Those of you who are here with us live on Zoom and those of you who are watching live on Facebook, thank you so much for joining. And apologies for the quality of my video. I'm actually using someone else's laptop. But here we are. I'm very excited about today's topic. I met Rob actually a few weeks ago and in one of the other programs at uni, and we connected actually on our passion for forgiveness. I've been practicing forgiveness for years, and to me, it's one of the best tools that are out there. And it helped me heal and clear and overcome so many obstacles, because in this life, whether you want it or not, you have to actually liaise and relate and live, in a community of people. And sometimes we get hurt. And a lot of our issues, a lot of the things that keep us stuck actually in life, no matter what we're trying to do, whether it is related to us starting a business, I realize actually time and time again, forgiving people, actually moving on and forgiving, it's one of the best healing tools there is that we can use to set ourselves free and help our clients to set ourselves free. And so Rob told me that he's the forgiveness guy, which he's going to talk more about in a minute. And he is actually coaching around it. I've never met anybody just coaching around forgiveness. And I found it so incredible. And I wanted to, of course, experience critically. And Rob was so generous, and he actually offered me to experience a 1.5 hour long session with him, where he took me through his technique. Or whatever, I don't know if it's your technique, but he will tell us more where you learned that. And I found it incredible. Probably one of the best forgiveness sessions that I've ever had. And so I thought more people need to hear about this, because as you're coaching your clients, sometimes you will come across, if not all the time, across them actually feeling angry or resentful about something or someone, and how you can actually help them overcome this. That's what I would like to us all to learn from Rob today. What is his secret sauce when it comes to forgiveness, where he picked it up. So tell us, Rob, how did you get started as a coach? How this whole niche came about? Tell us more about forgiveness and what it means to you, and why this niche.
Well, thank you very much, Rena, for allowing me to be here to be able to share my passion, which we definitely share about forgiveness. I never thought I would be a coach, to be perfectly honest. I started my journey into this really kind of came about after reading a book called Sacred Pace, which deals with relationship with God. I'm a Christian, so my relationship with God kind of defines a lot of my actions. And after putting into practice, the things that I learned in that book, my life really started to change. And one of the ways that it changed was I got invited to a Change for Good conference to learn about the technique that I use. And I got to be the demo dummy for chronic pain. Now, forgiveness, as you mentioned, really helps deal with a lot of angst, around relationships and that kind of stuff. But what I've learned about forgiveness is, and really unforgiveness and unresolved conflicts show up in our lives, relationally, also in the body, can show up in a lot of different ways, from chronic pain even up to cancer. And there's actually a lot of science behind, that side of things, but I digress. Let me go back. My journey really started when I went to this conference, and I got to be that demo dummy. I had a pain in my back that no doctor, chiropractor, massage therapist, or acupuncturist around the world, could fix, because I did some mission work in South Korea and in Russia, and was trying to fix this thing. And I literally just resigned myself to living with this pain for the rest of my life. Turns out it was an emotional pain. It had nothing to do with physical issues. I was holding on to anger, frustration, abandonment, and I had disassociated when my parents announced that they were getting a divorce when I was 8. So I was a high-functioning, angry 8-year-old robot for the majority of my life, doing the best I could, and trying to fix my unresolved conflicts, the ones that I knew about. But after that forgiveness session, the pain went away, completely gone. My wife no longer walks on eggshells like she used to, and I saw myself for the first time in the mirror. So that experience really changed my life. I realized this is what I was meant to do, because I grew up with forgiveness and I thought I was pretty good at it. Turns out I wasn't. Um, and that there's a lot more to forgiveness itself. Most of the time, uh, we're told, just forgive the person and move on. Well, okay, how do you do that? There's actually two types of forgiveness. There's the decisional forgiveness, I forgive you, we're going to move on. But then there's that emotional side, and that's what I really started to learn. And I decided this is the direction I'm going to go, because before I'd done several different jobs, and at the time I was helping people, privatize their money, become their own banker, and that kind of stuff. A lot of great work there in helping people. I love to help people, but you know that experience really shifted everything. And so I went through training to learn the technique that I use, which Dr. Annette Cargioli is the creator of this technique. It's called emotional polarity technique, and it's been around over 25 years, and it's had excellent success in ending all manner of physical and emotional pain and suffering in adults and kids. And it really transformed my life. It transformed my marriage, my physical health, my mental health, and everything. And so that's why I decided to really focus on forgiveness in my coaching, because uh, I learned that a lot of issues that we have, patterns that we have in our lives, really stem from unresolved conflicts from our childhood. And the CDC and Kaiser Permanente actually did a study to see if there was a direct correlation to disease and early childhood trauma and experiences, and they found that that is the case. So uh, forgiveness really addresses a lot of things, not just business stuff, but also physical stuff. My passion is helping people with relationships and with business blocks and that kind of stuff. So that's really where I kind of focus on, and the anxiety that comes up in that area. But yeah, that's kind of how I got started in my coaching business, and I've been doing this almost 2 years now. My first experience was January of 2020, and that really changed the direction of my life. And it's a really simple process that I take clients through, like you experienced, but it's very profound. And forgiveness, uh, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's helping people forgive, because a lot of people don't even know how to forgive. Uh, so that's, kind of the start of my story. And I've gotten to work with clients on a lot of different issues. You mentioned one thing that is really near and dear to my heart: anger. Because I grew up with rage. You wouldn't probably never guess that, and most people don't really know that about me, but I grew up with rage, and anger you have a right to is a big thing. Because how I like to illustrate it is, this anger that you have is like holding on to $100 bill, and God or the universe, sitting here behind you going, "Hey, look, I've got this vault full of money I'd love to give you," but you're like, I've got this anger. Um, and so that's the payment that you have. And a lot of people feel like if they forgive or let go, or, get rid of this anger, the other person is getting off scot-free. But the reality is, when you have anger towards someone else or something else or a situation, even, you are holding that in your body. It is going to impact you physically, relationally, mentally, emotionally, all of the things. And until you let that go, you know, using forgiveness, that's going to stick with you, and you're going to have issues. You'll see patterns in your life if you look for it and have eyes for it. So
tell us a bit more about the exact process. Let's take anger as the emotion.
Absolutely.
When you did the process, for instance, Rob actually identified 3 emotions, and I don't know if you must have tested, or how did you even figure out what were the issues that I was struggling with? You don't mention what they were, but
right. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Anger. And then of course you kind of like put a number on it from 0 to 10 or 0 to 9. I forgot what it was. But could you talk
right, absolutely. So
and use anger, not my anger.
Yeah.
Anger.
So the process, what it looks like, is very simple. It's a 4-step process. You have a focus. Anger could be the focus. It could be a number of other things. And I use muscle testing to ask my client's body what it's holding on to, before we dive in to find out what it is. I do a series of tests to see where people are on stages of healing. There's 7 of them. There's denial, anger, bargain, depression, acceptance, light emerging, and creation of new life. So we see where people are starting off, in stages of healing. We see, if there are negative subjective units of elation, because people can get positive feedback from things. It's a measurement of addiction to a thing. And yes, you can be addicted to anger. Been there, done that, no more. Also see, what the subjective units of distress are. How much distress is this focus, anger, causing you in your life? And those 2 are on a scale of 1 to 10. And sometimes people are, below the charts and go higher than that. I also ask your body, your subconscious, how many underlying issues or unresolved conflicts are feeding this focus. So how many issues are feeding this anger in your life? And I also ask your body whether it can show up, pay attention, tell the truth, and let go. Now, consciously, you may, feel like you're able to do those things, but on a subconscious level, when it's dealing with the underlying issues, your body may not be able to, your mind not want to, because it's created a series of defense mechanisms to protect you, because that's what our mind does. So the process is focus, find it, fix it, and forgive. And once we figure out where you're starting at, then we find out what your body's holding on to. We look at what's going on with you right now. And I use muscle testing. I don't know if anyone is familiar with muscle testing, but I use my finger like this. And if I meet with clients in person, I'm having them hold out their arm and pushing down. But that's how I ask a person's body what's going on. And I find the whose emotion are you holding on to, what that emotion is, and who or what that is being directed towards. My clients help me understand why they're feeling that way. So it's like having a conversation, and we find those emotions, we find that now picture, and then I have my clients focus on that now statement, and then ask if there's an original time that they experienced this emotion. And I muscle test to find out when that time is, and it's not an exact time. We give it about 12 to 18 months on either side of the age that shows up. Could be, when you're first born, could be, when you're 7, could be when you're 22. I don't know. I always ask the body, and the body tells me. And what that does is it triggers the subconscious to bring up, memories of what was going on at that time that need healing, needs forgiveness. And so we find the emotions that are stored on the body. Emotions are stored in different organs of the body. And once we find that original picture, we fix the emotions. And we interfere with the neuropeptides going between the brain and the organ with magnets, and balance that out. and we go back to that original picture and, do the exact same process in fixing the emotions by asking, are there any more emotions on this hidden picture? If it's a yes, we go and find it, fix it, come back. And it's a repetitive process. But once the body says, hey, there's no more emotions here, then we go into forgiveness. And the forgiveness phase, which is the fun part, where you're basically reframing how you show up on this original memory. We're forgiving yourself, forgiving others, and giving others permission to forgive you, so that you can really let go of all the emotions, patterns, and beliefs that came from this original memory, so that anytime you experience something similar in your life, you actually get to show up as your true adult self, an authentic self, instead of a traumatized younger version of yourself. So that's the process in a nutshell. And it's very simple and straightforward, but there's a little bit of an art to the forgiveness side of things. So
Thank you so much for sharing more about the process. And so those of us who are coaches, and perhaps I'm not really intending to become a forgiveness coach like yourself,
right.
but would like to integrate some sort of a forgiveness technique into our process, because we do come across this with our clients.
Mhm.
And is there any kind of like simplified version, simplified process that you could perhaps teach us here today that that would be interesting to viewers, that at least they don't feel like they are out of their depth should they need applying where they are,
Right.
when they're listening for a movie.
Absolutely.
Just want to kind of like.
Yeah, no, I've created a forgiveness lifestyle coaching group to help address, the day-to-day issues, because yes, what I go through with my clients is a very in-depth, process. And when you recognize as coaches that there is some inner work that is going on here, um, trying having the client, deal with the now stuff, and really maybe meditate on what's going on with them, and think back, is their original time, that can sometimes lead to that original memory. It not always, and uh, I I really uh, that's why I love the muscle testing aspect of it. But for coaches who want to integrate forgiveness into their coaching process, when you find that a client is getting triggered, what I like to teach people is to recognize when you're getting triggered. So you get angry, your boss or your clients are kind of ticking you off. Figure out, what emotions, anger's definitely there. But there may be some other emotions, resentment, insecurity. Have the client really take stock of those different emotions, and then start crafting forgiveness statements. A what would I have to believe to feel this kind of anger? So I forgive myself for believing that I have to be angry, at my boss for not doing things the way I would have them done. I forgive myself for believing that everything has to go my way, otherwise it's not going to be perfect. I forgive myself for believing that there's only one outcome that is a good outcome in this process. I forgive my clients for not doing the things that I, coaching them to do to get the results that I see they can get. Uh, so it's, and I forgive my clients for causing me to feel angry with them about these things. And if you are able to find a, original time in y'all's conversation, address, all the players in that original picture too. But here's the other part that a lot of people don't really get is giving other people permission to forgive you. Because it is a relationship, and everything that we do, we have a relationship with people and things. I give, my boss permission to forgive me for showing up with anger uh, towards him and his process. I give him permission to forgive me for holding on to this anger that I feel like I have a right to. Um, I give my clients permission to forgive me for showing up with frustration with them and not showing up in love. And in that process, you've identified things that they can let go and need to let go. And I give myself permission to let go of these emotions because they're no longer serving me, and they never really have. And in that letting go, you're able to then reframe how you show up to the situation. So, you know, that's a really good way of using forgiveness on the here and now and integrating it into your process. Just focusing on forgiving themselves, forgiving others, and then giving others permission to forgive them, and then let go
So
of those
how would
emotions.
that be? Let's have a live demo. So I forgot my charger at a friend's house last Sunday, and I've been without my laptop for the last 4 days, which made me extremely annoyed.
Okay.
And I was just telling Rob before we started with this podcast that it feels like I lost my arm. So how would I go about forgiving? So could you take me through that process?
Okay.
Not going deep.
Not going to the deep stuff. So I would say, repeat after me. I forgive myself for believing
I forgive myself for believing
that I have to feel frustrated and angry with myself
that I have to feel frustrated and angry with myself
for forgetting my charger
for forgetting my charger
at my friend's place.
at my friend's place.
I forgive myself for believing
I forgive myself for believing
that I have to punish myself, for forgetting this charger,
that I have to punish myself for forgetting this charger.
and breathe.
Just a moment.
And, I forgive the charger
I forgive the charger
for, not being where it was supposed to be,
for not being where it's supposed to be.
for me to remember to pick it up
For me to remember and pick it up.
and put it in my suitcase or wherever you put it. Yeah. And breathe. I forgive my friend for not,
shipping it. I forgive my friends for taking days to ship it to me.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead and breathe on that. I forgive my friends for causing me anger and frustration,
I forgive my friends for causing me anger and frustration.
for not shipping the charger to me right away.
For not shipping the charger to me right away.
And breathe. I give my friends permission to forgive me
I give my friends permission to forgive me
for holding on to this anger and frustration,
for holding on to this anger and frustration.
with them for not shipping my charger sooner,
With them for not shipping my charger sooner.
so that I can actually use my computer.
So that I can actually use my computer.
And breathe. I give myself permission to let go of this anger and frustration,
I give myself permission to let go of this anger and frustration.
because they're not serving me well and they never really have.
Because they're not serving me well and they never really have.
And breathe. And then without this anger and frustration, I'm free to feel love, forgiveness, and happiness.
Without this anger and frustration, I feel free to feel love,
Forgiveness and happiness.
forgiveness, and happiness.
With myself,
With myself,
with the charger,
with the charger,
and with my friends,
and with my friends.
now and continuously.
Now and continuously.
Yep. And breathe. So that's a very simple way to go through forgiveness, with a client on a particular topic. Now, Rena, how do you feel, after going through that forgiveness?
I do feel light. I did feel a shift, and this, of course, was just a minor issue. And but that day-to-day things that we get frustrated about, and of course, we end up blaming friends. Like, why should I be blaming friends? It's my, I forgot it. Right? But then we kind of like either blame ourselves or others, but somebody's always there to blame. So it's kind of like a default that we have.
Mhm.
Somebody or something has caused us to feel this way, and we get so stuck, and it happens every single day,
Yeah.
right? And
It-
actually integrating not only into coaching, some sort of a technique like that, but also integrating it in our own personal lives. I do feel there is a lot of value. And I hope those of you who are watching us live and those who will be watching the replays, I hope you're seeing how simple this process is. Of course, I mean, there is much more that goes to it. And this was just a very simplified version. There was so much more that Rob was doing with me in those 1.5 hours that we spent together. And I hope you get to experience this really, because it's such an incredible process. I have already went ahead and dropped Rob's links into the chat, and also on Facebook under the video. So feel free to reach out to him. One question that I have, I know you probably were running out of time last time, but you did mention about your group coaching program for forgiveness. Talk to us more about that, what it is, what's the investment, how often do you meet? I
yeah.
didn't get to kind of like ask you much about it last time.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about that. Like I said, I created this group forgiveness coaching and group forgiveness lifestyle really to teach people how to forgive, how to use forgiveness in the day-to-day life. Because, like you said, things trigger us and cause us all kinds of emotional turmoil in our lives. And, this is designed to teach people how to use forgiveness to bring peace back into your life. My wife and I really realized that we could do this, on a regular basis, just like what I walked you through. Um, when we trigger each other, because, husbands and wives never, you know, cause each other to be upset or, disheartened or anything like that. We never get into conflicts. So my wife and I will find each other helping one another with forgiveness statements when we recognize, oh, I've upset him or I've upset her. But even, when I'm by myself or in a situation, you know, out, with other business people, or, you know, going to a restaurant and things aren't going right, I will use these forgiveness statements. I forgive myself for believing that I have to be upset with, the waiter for not refilling my cup. I know that's petty, but uh, but I forgive, you know, myself for believing that I have to be angry. I forgive the waiter for causing me to be angry, even though it's not really their fault that I'm angry. I give the waiter permission to forgive me for being angry that they're not filling up my, water cup. I for, you know, and I give myself permission to let go of this anger so that I can show up in love. And that really dissipates that anger. It's, really amazing just how quickly that anger leaves the body and I can show up, in love. We call it recognize, forgive, and reframe. The group coaching program that I have meets once a month, and we look at different emotions and how those emotions, impact our lives, impact, physically, mentally, spiritually, and come up with, forgiveness statements and practice forgiveness in that session, because it takes time. I've, been doing, this for almost 2 years now and have, thousands of hours of forgiveness under my belt. Most people don't. So it's there to help people really uh, get into that habit, into that lifestyle of forgiveness. And um, with the things that we cover and teach, I charge 197 a month, which uh, gets people access to that group, forgiveness uh, coaching program, as well as a private Facebook group where we talk more in depth and share even more forgiveness statements. People get a copy of all the forgiveness statements that come up in the group session, but also other things that people may not consider. There's a lot of questions and assumptions when you're doing forgiveness. And so we teach those foundational principles and questions to our members so that they can really start to cultivate that mindset. So it's very simple, it's very straightforward, it's also very profound and very impactful for people's lives. People are really starting to see, a difference in their relationships, in how they're able to show up. They're catching themselves a little bit more and using forgiveness to reframe how they're interacting with the people around them. So uh, that is the very simple, straightforward answer to your question. I love helping people really integrate forgiveness into their lives and make it a lifestyle. Um, I don't know. I think you may have froze, but so to talk a little bit more about forgiveness, like what are some underlying questions that you may take into consideration? Um, Asking yourself, what would I have to believe to feel this way? Um, and then craft forgiveness statements around that. Um, it looks like we lost Rena for a quick second. So um, does anyone have any questions for me? I'll check the chat real quick. For those who are here. If not, let me talk a little bit about why forgiveness. A little bit more. I shared with you my experience of that release and relief from the chronic pain that no one could touch. And when I experienced that, I really did believe everyone needs to experience this kind of freedom, because it really impacted every aspect of my life. Coming back from that conference, everyone that I know was like, Rob, there is something different about you. And it is the quickest way to resolve an unresolved conflict, whether it's a current issue or something from your past. And what is an unresolved conflict? That is something that if you remember it, you get a charge, an emotional charge, get all tight, and you're like, oh man, all those emotions just come back, and it's like reliving that experience all over again. If you have those in your lives, those memories, those are unresolved conflicts. And what happens is your body, your subconscious, will recreate situations to try and resolve those unresolved conflicts. So if you find yourself in the same pattern over and over and over again, there's probably an unresolved conflict from your past that you need to deal with, because your body is trying to fix something in the here and now that took place back then. And that's what I find with a lot of my clients, is they are trying to deal with subconsciously things that happened in their past. And now I know you guys are coaches, and you guys get to deal with businesses and all kinds of stuff, but I want to share with you a story that I have permission to share, and it's not with an adult, it's actually with a child. And I love sharing this because it deals with perceptions. And as coaches, you're helping your clients deal with perceptions that may be true or may not be true of what's going on in their life. But this can come from childhood as well. This client of mine is actually 3 years old when I worked with her, and that child had a fear of taking baths. Well, it turns out the unresolved conflict was when she was born. You know, she was born in water. She almost died, and her parents feared for her life. That um, that caused her to subconsciously, oh, actually, her parents' fear for her life was perceived by her as mom and dad don't want me. So every time she encountered a body of water, she would cry and break down. Now, when we used forgiveness to fix that unresolved conflict, she was able to take a bath with a big old smile on her face and hasn't had any issues with that since. I share that because that is the easiest explanation for how the body stores things, stores perceptions, and impacts our lives. Those perceptions, whether they're true or not, are held as truth. And this young child perceived mom and dad didn't want her every time she encountered water, whether it was taking a bath, going swimming, etc. And so that truth, which was not true, uh, really impacted her life and her family's life as well, and no longer does because of forgiveness. Uh, so, but I can share with you stories of clients who had money issues as well, and that um, people making good money, but at the end of the month, they didn't have anything to show for it. Turns out this client's issue was uh, his dad, when he was a young man, uh, related how he hated rich people. And so subconsciously, this client was spending all of his money on all kinds of different things that he didn't need so that he could continue to have his father's approval, even though he was making really good money and becoming rich. Um, so took care of that. He was able to subconsciously, start taking actions to plug up the holes in his financial bucket and started accumulating wealth and still be able to have that relationship with his dad and not fear disapproval or rejection anymore. So a couple of stories of clients who I've worked with on different things. Uh, like I said, the first one with the 3-year-old, really just to illustrate that perceptions, whether they're true or not, are held as truth in our subconscious and in our bodies and impact our lives. And dealing with those really will help your clients, you know, live better lives. And forgiveness is really the quickest way to do so.
What are some of the myths that you would like to debunk when it comes to forgiveness?
Oh,
It's stopping people from actually making forgiveness part of their life.
forgiveness isn't necessary. It is probably the biggest um, myth that I see people. It's like, oh, this happened. I'm just going to let it go, move on. The problem is that, when you don't forgive, make that decision to forgive and then forgive all of the emotional components to it, that stays with you. Excuse me. Um, and that issue that you said, oh, I'll just let it go, will show up again in your life. And unless you deal with that and resolve that with forgiveness, whether the person is there in the room to forgive or not, you will see that pattern over and over again. And another one is, forgiveness doesn't really work. Uh, it's really not all that effective. Well, that's because most people don't realize there are two types of forgiveness. There's decisional forgiveness, which is what most people hear about. Just forgive them and let go and move on. Um, but that emotional forgiveness is really the key to forgiving and moving on. It doesn't change the fact that the things happened, or that you know there was impact from whatever situation occurred, but how you show up on that memory and in subsequent situations will change if you forgive and reframe how you show up. So letting go of those negative emotions, patterns, and beliefs, and instilling in yourself, hey, I can show up in love. I can show up in forgiveness and happiness. I can show up being okay, feeling safe, secure, and complete with myself whenever I encounter a similar situation. I've forgiven this person for what they did, causing me to feel insecure, um, and anger and all these different things. So uh, those are kind of the two big myths that I deal with um, when it comes to forgiveness. Is it's not necessary and it doesn't work. It absolutely does, and it is absolutely necessary because um, it's unforgiveness has even become a medical issue. Uh, so it's a documented issue, but no one really talks about it. So uh, there are other things we could go into, but that's for another time.
Right. I guess my next question would be is, we as coaches, when we try to coach someone through forgiveness, I guess people who come to you, they know you're the forgiveness guy, so probably they're already ready to forgive. What if we come across someone who really struggles but doesn't want to forgive, and they happen to be our clients, and actually we probably coaching them around something completely different, but then we see that perhaps there is something that's really preventing them from succeeding. So what are some of the most common mistakes we can do there, and what would be some of the best practices?
So yeah, with people who really don't want to forgive or have a hard time forgiving a situation, mistake is to really try and focus on the situation itself, and start off with forgiving all the components of that. If someone is really struggling with forgiving, start with that. Start with, I forgive myself for believing I can't forgive this person. I forgive, this person for causing me so much pain that I feel like I can't let this go. Um, I give them permission to forgive me for holding on to this anger that I have a right to, um, as a way of hurting them and protecting myself. You know, really, dive deep into what what must I believe to feel this way about forgiveness and my inability to do so with this person and in this situation, and tackle that first. And then once you get to there, check in with them. Okay, when you think about this person in this situation, how are you feeling? 9 times out of 10, they're going to be feeling a little bit better, or a lot better around that. Then take that forgiveness process and tackle that person in that situation that they really need to let go of. And it's very simple and straightforward. I know it's probably mundane and and that kind of stuff, but it really is that simple. Uh, and once you deal with the unforgiveness, the unwillingness to forgive, then you can tackle whatever problem it is that they are dealing with. So
That's a very good explanation. It's actually, that does actually make sense. Um, to really go deep and look at the underlying issue before you can actually move to the next, to the real forgiveness process. So thank you. This is very helpful.
my pleasure.
Are there any mindset shifts that you think coaches should make when it comes to forgiveness?
Um, I would say mindset shifts, forgiveness is effective. I mean, forgiveness, you know, it's not just for the religious, you know, sector of life. It really is something that will help on the day to day. And it's uh, here's a quick study that was done with 300 inmates who had hurt people, done terrible things to them. They did a study where um, they wanted to see what forgiveness would do for them. And um, so they found 300 inmates whose uh, victims were willing to just meet with the people and allow uh, the inmates to say, I'm sorry, and ask for forgiveness. And the victims said, I forgive you. Just that simple. Of 300 inmates, only one came back after they were released into society. The rest went on to live their lives. So forgiveness is extremely impactful in shifting people and their lives and their perceptions. So if you can and find space for forgiveness in your coaching, especially when you see someone is struggling with something and just keeps repeating the same pattern over and over again, forgiveness can and will help in that situation. And just give it a shot. What could it hurt?
I guess my last question would be more kind of like out of curiosity. I mean, you help people forgive now all the time. This is actually what your coaching is centered on. And
Mhm.
what are some of the, let's say, three top insights, top three aha moments that you had in the last couple of years when it comes to forgiveness and
Um,
the impact it has on people's life?
so when it comes to forgiveness, like that, those aha moments have been like, wow, this is that simple. That was one of the first things that um, really impacted me, was how simple this is, but how profound it is. Um, and the fact that a lot of my personal thought processes and I used to beat myself up, in my mind, just negative thoughts all the time. How, as I have forgiven myself for doing that, how that has shifted. I have a lot more gratitude in my life. And yeah, just, I mean, everything that I see in life now goes to, okay, what's the story behind why a person is showing up the way the person is showing up? And, you know, 9 times out of 10, people aren't showing up as adults. They're showing up as traumatized younger versions of themselves. And it can be that quick, uh, from issue to issue, from instance to instance, and how someone shows up. And recognizing when someone isn't showing up as, you know, adult with good reasoning and processing skills and with wisdom, you know, has really helped me approach people with a lot more grace and a lot more love, and really helped me to listen to them even more than not what I was doing before, and really listen to see what's going on uh, with them at a deeper level. So forgiveness has really opened my eyes to a lot of different things in my relationship with myself and with those around me. Uh,
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing. Those of you who are watching us live or are here with us live, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. We still have a couple of minutes as we are wrapping up. I did share, you shared with me a few links on how people can connect with you. I
Mhm.
see there's a website, there's a group coaching program. There's also something called emotional weight loss. So what is that?
Right. So that's the emotional weight loss, you know, is really what I like to say I help people with. Uh, a lot of my clients feel a lot lighter afterwards. In fact, one said, "Rob, I feel like I've lost 22 pounds, in this session." So the emotional weight loss link is really there to, be able to schedule a time to talk with me about any emotional stuff that you may be holding on to and you're having a really hard time letting go. We can sit down and have a conversation about um, what's going on with your life. What are you having a hard time forgiving? Patterns that keep popping up. And if we find that it's a good fit for us to work together, you know, I'll make some recommendations of what program, whether it's the group forgiveness program or working one-on-one with me, and what that looks like. So that emotional weight loss is really there to help people clarify what's going on with their lives, come up with a plan of action and leave energized to take action, whether it's with me or on their own, or in a group setting, to let go of that emotional baggage that they've been holding on to that's been impacting their lives. So that's that's what I'm about. I want people to live freer lives and a lot less heavy.
I'm so happy that there is someone out there who actually coaches around forgiveness. I'm so happy that this exists, and definitely I'll come back to you in the future. And those of you who would like to experience, well, the link is there. Reach out to him, see how you can work with him, maybe joining his group coaching program one-on-one, and reach out to him also on Facebook, Rob Scott. That's how you can find him too. He's one of my friends on Facebook, so become one of my friends.
Yep.
And any final words before we wrap up and send people out to live their lives and do some forgiveness?
Absolutely, absolutely. And for your group, I would be glad to do that emotional weight loss session. It's absolutely free, and you know give some good insight into what things are going on.
This
Because
big drop on up on this for 19 minutes of emotional weight loss.
yeah, it's it's a lot of fun, and I would love to help anyone who really wants to learn more about forgiveness. I hope that I've been able to provide you with some really good steps to integrating forgiveness into your coaching program. Uh, Dealing with the inner work is always fun and challenging at the same time. And if you have any more questions, I'd be glad to talk with you. And you can schedule a time to talk with me. If you go to my main website, you can find some links to uh, schedule a time, or email me at info@theforgivenesslink.com. Be glad to set up a time and talk more.
Excellent. Well, Rob, thank you so much for being here with us and spending this hour with us and sharing with us more than anything about the technique, the process, how it works, what were the insights and such. And yeah, I look forward to following your work and seeing where you take this niche. And keep in
Same here.
touch. And everyone, you know how to reach out to Rob. Those who will be watching this, the replays, and how to reach out to them. Well, thank you so much. And
Thank you very much for having me, and for the work that you do. I mean, we share this passion for forgiveness, and I'm so glad I'm not the only one who, sees the value of it. And it's a blessing to be here and to share this passion.
I mentioned this to you, but those of you who are watching this and have not heard the story before, sometime 2 years ago, I got advice to do forgiveness every single day. It's a different technique that I do, but basically I did it for 3 months and I lost 5 kilograms and I never put them back on. And as I was doing that forgiveness, I kept coughing and coughing and coughing. And there were so many negative energies that were leaving my abdominal area that I didn't even notice because it wasn't my intention to lose weight or any of that, and then I lost 5 kilograms and I didn't even notice. And then I realized, wow, just by releasing all that resentment, anger from my intestines, from my digestive system, from my stomach, because that's where it all accumulates. I talk a lot about about chakras. Navel chakra has much to do with injustice, feeling of injustice, unfairness. So all those feelings that actually get accumulated there. So actually more emotional weight loss, it's not just that you release those emotions, you really, really lose weight. And it happened to me, and I never dieted in my life, to be truthful, never needed it. But then losing 5 kilograms, I was like, wow, that's a nice side effect. And so those of you who are actually struggling with losing weight or have not been able to lose weight, chances are that all that negative energy is causing you to not be able to lose weight because you're somehow protecting yourself or whatever reason. And maybe it's just causing you indigestion and stuff and such. And those of you who perhaps know a bit more about your energetic composition, the physical body is actually the printout. It's the effect, it's not the cause. And so just by working energetically and cleaning up your energies, you actually lose weight first in your energy body. You slim up first in the energy body. And then the physical body follows suit. That's why often all those weight loss programs where you actually just focus on kind of like eating the right things and exercises, they often don't work, or we give up before we see results. But it's because there's something going on with you energetically that is causing the body to follow suit and kind of like block a bit. But then when you work on yourself energetically and heal that, your energetic makeup becomes much more healthier, which means the body becomes healthier. Right? And then those changes can be seen. So I can totally attest to that. And
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
If you like, and if you're interested, also feel free to private message me, and I'm happy to share the technique that I was using. And it took me 15 minutes of a day to do it, and I loved it. Well,
Awesome.
that's it from us. Thank
Awesome.
you so much. I hope you learned a lot of new things about forgiveness. Go and practice.
Bruce.
Bye.